Pulling herself together, she yells that she's aiming for his blind spot and switches up her attack pattern, but Chu, using his own dynamic vision, just taunts her again. He blocks the blow with ease, leaving her shocked by his sudden jump in power. While she's distracted, our hero places his blade against her neck. She's frozen in disbelief, unable to process that she just lost to a rookie. Beaming with pride, Chu announces that he is the undisputed winner of the fight. Over at the mercenary base, sponsored by the army, Chu is pleased with what he sees. Sergeant Yang whispers to Miss Lee, telling her to address our protagonist as Chief Chu. She gets it, but asks why Yang calls him Big Bro. Yang just shrugs, saying their relationship is a little complicated. Turning to Chu, she asks what he plans to do with the bandits they captured yesterday. With a terrifying grin, he says he has an idea that sends a shiver down the bandits' spines. A few hours earlier at the headquarters training field, our boy was demanding that Lee call him Big Brother. She fired back that she would rather die than say it. Our protagonist asks if she's talking back to her captain, eventually wearing her down, until she caves and calls him Big Bro. But even then, our hero doesn't let up on the teasing. From a distance, the general watches in shock, amazed that Chu so easily defeated Joseon's best swordmaster. He worries that if his own subordinates had seen that, their morale would have taken a nosedive. However, the soldiers' reaction is the complete opposite. They all start cheering for our protagonist, making the general wonder just whose side they're on. The rest of the bandits are soon brought before the general. His assistant reports that these are all the men they captured on the mountain. The general is surprised. He never expected someone like Hoyle Jang to assemble such a massive crew. There are so many of them that the prison doesn't have enough room to hold them all. The assistant notes that they've already executed the ones who committed serious crimes, but the rest can't be sent back to Earth because of the biome superhumans in Nova. Unexpectedly, our protagonist offers to take them off his hands, explaining that he needs mercenaries and thinks they could be useful. Chu figures some of them must be useful, and decides to only take the ones he personally picks. Standing before them, he yells out, asking if they remember him. He then offers them a simple choice fight him, and anyone who survives gets to live. With that, he tells them all to attack him at once. Chu cracks his knuckles as the bandits stand there, shocked by this brutal path to survival. Trusting in their superior numbers, they decide to launch a coordinated assault. They've braced themselves for the worst, but our protagonist actually praises their courage. Only 60 prove to be brave, while the rest are just cowards. He thanks his new recruits and then offers the general a fist bump, calling him by his first name. The general is stunned by the casual address, and it's clear Lee and the other soldiers are just as shocked. Lee is visibly uncomfortable, but to her surprise, the general is actually touched to be treated so informally. Back in the present, our protagonist explains his plan to turn these bandits into a battle-ready unit. Lee thinks the idea is crazy, reminding him that they're criminals, and that turning them into mercenaries seems impossible. Ginte agrees it's a long shot, wondering if men like that can ever really be trusted. But Chu reminds him that the 5 members of the Yonggu clan were also gangsters, arguing that trust is forged in the heat of battle. Ginte starts to panic, wondering how he was supposed to know their backstory, but our hero reassures him that, as the vice captain, he's more than capable of handling it. Standing before the bandits at their new camp, our boy announces that their past crimes no longer matter. From now on, they're his mercenaries, and he asks if anyone has a problem with that. The former bandits roar back in unison that they have no objections whatsoever. Captain Choi finds their sudden discipline incredible, but Lee comments that Chu, who was already powerful, has now gathered his own loyal followers, making him even more dangerous. She advises the captain to keep a close eye on him and report back. A week later, a report lands on the general's desk, labeling Chu as a threat to the government. The general finds the accusation absolutely outrageous, but the person reporting clarifies that the claim comes from a Colonel Moran, the very same officer who sent Warrant Officer O to capture him. Holding the report, the general realizes Moran is just holding a grudge because she failed to recruit him herself. The messenger suggests they try to smooth things over with the government, and the general agrees, noting that the last thing they need is the state going after their own mercenaries. He's wondering how they'll establish legitimacy for Chelu's squad, just as soldiers arrive to report on the man's recent activities. They hand over a scroll detailing everything. The general is worried that our protagonist might already be causing trouble. But the report tells a completely different story. Chelu forced the mercenaries to build a cabin in a single night. Afterward, he began training his squad relentlessly, taking on all 60 mercenaries by himself. He doubled the training for anyone who hesitated and severely punished those who tried to escape. Through this intense regimen, the former bandits were forged into something entirely new. The night before the raid, the mercenaries are told to get some rest, while Chelu picks up his axe from the forge. Most importantly, he uses a tribal chief emblem, which lets him create a tribe within a territory. He hits the confirmation button on his system window and names his mercenary squad Iron Head. The tribe's capacity is set to 200 members. Everyone congratulates him on finally turning the men into real warriors, but Chelu's real plan is to convert the squad into a full-fledged warrior tribe. The general is shocked that our hero got his hands on the emblem so quickly, knowing that item is usually exclusive to the ranker shop. Captain Choi explains that he earned it as a reward for clearing a new hidden dungeon, which also gave him a world map. The general calls it an incredible reward, pointing out that the chief emblem makes the group immune to government interference. His assistant adds that the emblem also allows the mercenaries to be tracked. If any bandit tries to make a run for it, their location pops up on the captain's map. The general believes this is more than enough to persuade the government and is curious to see how the upcoming raid will play out. As night falls, Chelu decides to set up camp for the evening. Lee feels anxious about facing the raiders again and starts to wonder if she's really strong enough to defeat them. Soon our protagonist shows up and asks if she wants to eat, but she claims she has no appetite. He insists she eat well to keep her energy up for the battle, leaving her shocked by his apparent concern. No one has ever cared for her like this before, despite her being the best swordmaster, and she feels a confusing new emotion. For a moment, seeing Chelu reminds her of her own mother. However, to her surprise, our protagonist just says it's a shame she won't eat and then starts chowing down on her food himself. She realizes he was only pretending to be concerned, so he could steal her meal. Furious, she tells him to leave her food alone and eat his own, but he's already finished it. Suddenly, our boy stands up, having noticed something in the distance. This makes Lee ask what's going on. Our protagonist says he hears something and grabs his axe. Meanwhile, at the top of a nearby mountain, the raider group is facing off against a pack of monsters. Their leader orders his men to wipe them all out, shouting that the beasts can't match their speed. He yells for them to show the real power of the horseback raiders. The leader is Chunai Kim, known as one of the Big Three. The battle rages at the foot of the mountain as the raiders clash with green monsters. Their leader scans the chaos looking for the boss monster. And once he spots his target, he takes it out with a single swift strike of his spear. This secures their victory, and he promptly orders his men to regroup. However, what he didn't see coming was Chu standing high above them on the mountain. Our protagonist shouts the leader's name and confidently announces that he's come to wipe them out. With a stylish landing, he drops down right in front of the group. The raider leader demands to know who he is. So our hero introduces himself and states his intention to kill the man and take his horses since he's a big fan of the animals. The leader remarks that he's heard rumors about him, specifically that he was the one who wiped out the bandits of Mount Oben. He asks the young man to hear him out, acknowledging that this mission was probably a military order, but he questions why someone as capable as Chelu would get mixed up with people like that. With a wide grin, our protagonist dismisses the comment as nonsense, insisting he's just here to punish some thieves. He then leaps toward his target with his axe. But the leader defends himself with a spear, remarking that they aren't thieves since they've never actually stolen from anyone. While preparing a counterattack, he insists that the horseback raiders are simply explorers. Holding tight to the spear, our boy says that this story is completely different from the reports he got. He adds that he can't just take the man's word for it. On the other hand, Chunai is stunned that Chu can hold on to the spear with sheer brute force. Realizing his opponent is on another level, he lets go of the weapon, thinking that his raiders will be in serious danger if this fight continues. Our hero places his axe against the man's neck. The leader says that if he won't believe the truth, he can go ahead and take his head, but warns him that doing so would mean taking an innocent life. Shu finds himself in a tough spot. He wonders if he could really be about to kill an innocent person. He remembers feeling that something was off when he killed Jiang Tu, making him wonder if he should actually believe this man. He needs to be certain that he's doing the right thing. Right on cue, Lee arrives with the mercenaries. She chews out our protagonist for coming alone and acting so recklessly, though she does admit that he at least managed to nab the traitor. Our boy tells her to hold on because he wants to confirm the situation first. He demands an explanation about the horseback raiders. Lee looks a little uneasy, but admits that, if she's not mistaken, they are considered dangerous. She states that Kim is a traitor who was once a soldier just like the others, but he had frequent disagreements with Chief Park about the future of Neo Seoul. Eventually, Kim left the army and formed his own organization that opposed the military, making them the government's #1 target. Our hero asks if this means they're dangerous but not actual thieves. She explains that they have a bad reputation, but nothing has been officially recorded, nor has any actual damage been reported. However, Kim has insider knowledge about the military, which is what makes him a threat. Kim calls out to Lee, insisting they have never misused information or attacked Neo's soul, and he pleads with her not to turn a blind eye to the truth. Watching the exchange, our protagonist finds it strange that Kim is so calm, even with his life hanging by a thread. Kim then asks if our protagonist has finished sizing him up, and if he's finally going to take his head. He adds that if his death will prove his innocence, he only asks that his men be spared. Our hero is surprised that Kim would offer his own life for his subordinates. Making his final decision, he declares that he won't kill him. Major Lee is shocked by this choice, but our protagonist explains that since they aren't bandits, killing them would make him no better than Zhang. However, he refuses to go back empty-handed and demands to know where to find horses in exchange for their lives. Kim chuckles, remarking that our boy really knows how to drive a hard bargain. He agrees and provides a crucial piece of information. He explains that Neosol horses can't be tamed as easily as the ones on land. The only way is to get a pet pouch, which lets you keep the creatures of Nova. He shows them the red-rooted pots, the first ingredient needed to craft the item. When our protagonist asks where to find it, Kim replies that the task won't be easy. Soon our protagonist reaches the ogre's territory and spots one walking up ahead. He reflects that he has never faced an ogre this huge before, but he just gets excited and charges the beast with his axe. He attacks, but the ogre easily deflects the blow with its incredible strength. The creature swings its club, and the force is so immense that even after our hero dodges, the weapon smashes right through the trees. He recognizes the monster's strength just as it lands a punch to his stomach, sending him flying backward. Using his axe, he saves himself by digging it into the ground. He then activates Ogre Skin. After taking a powerful blow like that, our boy has to acknowledge the strength of Kim's group, who managed to defeat these creatures all on their own. The ogre starts swinging its club again, but our hero easily evades each and every attack. At that moment, our hero focuses on his axe, which begins to glow with an overwhelming aura. He smashes his glowing weapon against the club and is pleased that the result is even better than he had imagined. Just a day earlier, the blacksmith had used his guardian staff to upgrade the axe, and our protagonist had wondered if the weapon had gained any special abilities. The blacksmith had informed him that it was now imbued with magic, which explains why his attacks had become so much more powerful. Now named the Axe Imbued with Guardian's Power, the weapon has turned red because of the magic. With this tool, both attacking and defending have become a breeze. When he uses its weapon magic, he can interrupt an opponent's movement by harnessing the rotational force from a parry. He puts even more power into his swing and successfully eliminates the ogre, proving that even an ogre's tough skin stands no chance against it. After its death, the ogre drops an orb. Our hero grabs it, and the system identifies it as an ogre's ability orb. It allows the user to perform one of the creature's special skills. Excited, our protagonist crushes the orb and acquires the ogre's strength ability, allowing him to wield the power of a giant that transcends species with the aid of magic. Meanwhile, Ginta stands inside a mimic's cave surrounded by countless treasures and chests. The cavern also contains the raw materials required to craft a pet pouch. The group members ask their sub-captain if they should just start opening all the treasure chests, but he explains that they have to be careful. Out of every 10 chests, 9 are actually mimics. They don't take his explanation seriously, which leaves Ginta feeling a little frustrated. He thinks to himself that someone braver really should have come in his place. He recalls a conversation with our protagonist where they decided to split their forces so he could hunt the ogre alone. Ginta had asked if Lee would enter the cave, but she flat out refused. She explained that there was no reason for the army to help them while their mission was on hold, so she decided to return and report back to the general. Recalling this, Ginta feels a little scared at the thought of being there alone. However, our boy reminds him that he's the sub-captain and will be just fine. Chelu encourages him, saying that if he leads the team, well, clearing the cave will be a piece of cake. This encouragement gives Ginta the confidence he needs to take on this important task. Back in the present, Ginta commands his soldiers with great enthusiasm. He's devised a plan where the vanguard identifies the real treasure chests and the archers destroy the fakes. With that, he orders his soldiers to begin the search. By evening, Kim orders them to set up camp and wait for their mercenaries. Later, Kim and a companion observe the site from a higher vantage point. His companion asks if he's all right with having given away information about the horses so easily. He notes that if the military discovers how the horses are tamed, they'll be in danger. Kim just says they'll have to find another way to get stronger. He believes the horses aren't something they can monopolize forever, as others will eventually figure it out. The companion adds that even if others learn the method, the materials aren't easy to get, especially the ones from the ogres. Kim asks if his companion really believes that, adding that he has a feeling our hero won't have any trouble at all. After nightfall, Cholu and Ginte arrive at the camp. Kim walks over and asks if they've gathered everything. Our protagonist explains that it would have taken too long otherwise, so they split up to speed things up. They then lay out all the items they collected. Ginte collected a considerable amount, and Cholu gathered a huge number of pots, leaving everyone astonished. In a flashback, we see our boy received a pot after defeating his first ogre. Realizing this, he decided to defeat as many as possible to get a high yield. Back in the present, Kim curiously asks for his secret to acquiring so many. Our hero replies that there's no secret. He simply wiped out the ogres and collected the items. Kim asks if he did it all by himself, and when Cholu confirms it, Kim is completely floored. Later, a large pot is simmering over the fire. Checking his system, our protagonist sees that the abandoned alchemist lab feature can be used to create pet pouches. This is new information for Cholu, as the horseback raiders had only just discovered this lab themselves. Kim explains that's just how things work in the unknown world of Nova. Information is power. Those who prioritize exploration are the first to make new discoveries. He then tells our boy to craft his pouch. Cholu throws in the necessary materials, and the combination costs 78 coins. A short time later, he opens the pot, and a cloud of smoke billows out. The system notifies him that the pet pouch has been created and added to his inventory. Our hero picks up the pouch feeling totally hyped. He tells Ginty to handle the rest of the ingredients, saying he's going to go get a horse at dawn. Later, they sit down for dinner, drinking water from a rum container. Kim smiles, pointing out that Cholu drinks water like it's rum. However, Ginta reveals they can't drink alcohol because they're underage, which leaves Kim stunned. Ginte then asks Kim why he left the military. With a serious expression, Kim says that he simply had different priorities. The current Chief Park focused on the security and property of Neo Seoul, while Kim insisted on exploring outside the city to make them stronger. In the end, they couldn't overcome their differences, and that's why he left. Ginta asks if he regrets it, but Kim says he still feels the same way. He states that he protects the country in his own way. He explains that while Neo Seoul prioritizes internal development, his group handles external threats during their explorations. He believes that if Neo Seoul lacks power, it will eventually fall to bandits. Ginte then points out the connections between the military, the bandits, and the horseback raiders, and Kim nods in confirmation. While they eat, our protagonist asks if this bothers Kim since he's a real soldier, pointing out that the military is now trying to kill him. Kim just says that one day they'll understand. He then gets up to leave, mentioning he has a long journey ahead the day after tomorrow. Outside the tent, he's surprised to find Lee waiting under a cloak. She says she came because she has something to ask him. She asks why he let her win that day, and he explains that if they had both gone all out, it would have resulted in serious injuries for both of them, which would have weakened Neo Seoul's military force. In disbelief, she tells him to stop talking nonsense. Kim replies that Neo Seoul needs a figure of authority that external forces are afraid to touch. Lee remarks it would have been better if he had stayed, but Kim just asks if she heard him stating that he has his own responsibilities to worry about. He advises her not to reveal her weaknesses since she's the top swordmaster tasked with protecting the citizens. Day breaks, and the group finds themselves before a field where several horses are grazing. Kim states they are stronger and have superior endurance if they're given pots roots and treated well. Eventually, they form a close bond, which in turn expands their magical energy. Ginte gets why they need so many roots. Our boy, however, seems a little bothered. No matter how he looks at them, they just seem like ordinary horses. But after observing more closely, Chelu spots a black and white horse with horns, the king of the plains, the iron-striped horse. It immediately catches his eye. Ginte comments that it's larger than the others, but Kim explains that it's a problematic, untamable monster. This, of course, only gets our hero more excited. Even when Kim insists that the creature is more of a monster than a horse, Chelu ignores him and dashes forward, proclaiming that nothing is impossible. The horned beast notices him approaching. Our protagonist remarks that he's going to enjoy this fight and demands the monster become his pet. The horse squeals defiantly, clearly not a fan of the idea. Chelu starts to wonder if the creature simply has a personal problem with him. Seeing as a peaceful solution is off the table, he lunges at the monster with a powerful strike. He grabs it by the horns and seats himself on its back. Although the horse tries desperately to buck him off, our hero recognizes its strength and lands a decisive blow on the monster's head. With a submissive look in its eyes, the beast finally gets the message. Chelu repeats his demand, warning that it will either become his pet or face the consequences. The horse begins to tear up. A system window pops up. offering to register the iron-striped horse as a pet for the cost of 1,520 coins. Later, Ginta is seen happily stroking his own tamed horse, which seems to enjoy the affection. Chelu walks up and asks if that's the beast Ginta tamed. Ginta nods, revealing his only cost 270 coins. Our boy finds this incredibly cheap, especially since his own cost over 1,000. Ginta explains it's because Chelu tamed a high-level beast. He then asks what he plans to name it, but our protagonist already has a name in mind. A system window confirms the name Sonata for the rank B iron-striped horse, which possesses both running and headbutting skills. On top of that, the creature won't disappear if its owner falls in battle and is even capable of being revived. Chelu then suggests that Ginta name his horse Abante. With that settled, the group rides together through the desert landscape. Kim comments on the taming process, noting that perhaps other types of beasts can be tamed as well. He turns to Chelu and remarks that since he managed to tame such a creature, he seems to be full of surprises. Our hero thanks him for the tip about the pet pouch. With the task finished, Kim decides to leave the group as his goal lies beyond the border. Chelu wonders if the dark spots on the map are locked-off areas. Kim nods, suggesting that if this place functions like a game, there must be a way to unlock them. When Chelu asks if he has a plan, Kim reveals his intent to take down the area bosses. Hearing this, our boy mentions he already eliminated one during his Nova exam. This brings up the question of how safe it is to be sharing such information. Chelu asks if it's wise to be sharing these details since they could become the first to conquer the zones. Kim just laughs, stating he doesn't care about things like that. His only goal is to keep their homeland safe. Our protagonist finds Kim's convictions incredibly strong and notes that people like him are rare. Kim prepares to head out, but Chelu stops him to offer him a spot in his squad. After a brief pause, Kim shakes his head and explains he has people depending on him. Chelu respects the decision and tells Kim the offer is always open if he changes his mind. Deep down, he expected that answer, but accepts there's nothing he can do about it. The raiders leave the area to begin their journey, and our hero orders his own squad to head back to Neo Seoul. Later, Chelu and Ginta report back to the general. The general demands an explanation as to why they are refusing the raiders' attack mission. Chelu explains that Kim is an innocent man, and he refuses to act like an assassin just to eliminate him. The general remarks that our protagonist can't make such decisions on his own, but Chelu insists that they can. He compares Kim to a newborn baby to illustrate his innocence, asking the general if he would follow an order to take down an infant. The general is confused, so our hero explains further that Kim is a pure adventurer, not a villain. He claims Kim is no different from a child in terms of innocence and asserts that he knows the man better than anyone. The old man eventually agrees, admitting that Kim is in fact a nice guy. In reality, the general had been hesitating and postponing the pressure from top management to eliminate him. Our protagonist points out that the general is finally being honest. The general admits to being a coward and suggests he tried to alleviate his own guilt by assigning the task to Chelu. He understands the reluctance because Kim is a truly decent person. Our boy mentions he tried to recruit Kim, but the man refused. General Park describes Kim as someone worth having, but notes his strong rebellious attitude is something no ordinary leader could handle. Cholu reflects that he still has a long way to go. The general asks if they are hungry, and Cholu notes it is nearly time to eat. He asks if soup will be served, but the general knows a simple soup won't cut it. He announces that a proper meal has been prepared. Ginta gets excited as the general explains they deserve a real feast. He then offers them a drink, but Ginta points out they are still underage. General Park counters that the new year has begun on Earth, making them adults, and insists they should have their first drink. However, our hero declines wishing to have his first drink with his grandfather back on Earth, though he remains eager for the food. The next day, Cholu and Ginta head out alone, leaving their squad behind. Ginta is worried about this arrangement, but our protagonist is carefree, noting he can simply punish anyone who tries to escape later. Still, Ginta believes they need someone to keep the troops in line and train them. They are soon spotted by General Park. The general examines their horses and learns their names are Sonata and Abante. He dislikes the names and suggests Grand instead, but both boys find the idea terrible. Dropping the jokes, the general reveals he is also returning to Earth. He is not going back for family, but because he has been summoned due to Earth being in trouble. He was stuck in Nova because the portals only open every 5 days. Cholu asks about the nature of the trouble. Although he is not supposed to reveal anything, the general explains that Korea is in a state of chaos. A coup has occurred in North Korea led by Goryeo General Seok Lee, who claims to be from Nova. As a result, the entire public now knows that Nova exists. Colonel Moran appears worried while Warrant Officer Janu Oh remains calm. She remarks that the coup in North Korea means the existence of planet Nova will be revealed to the entire world. Expecting a massive influx of people, O asks to be sent back to Neo Seoul, but the colonel is not pleased. She has already stationed him on Earth to round up draft-dodging Novas and cannot risk their base in his absence. Furthermore, she is concerned about Director Park, whose recent suspicious behavior makes her fear a potential coup in South Korea as well. O questions her suspicions regarding Director Park and highlights the man's contributions to Neo Seoul. He adds that Cholu has also proven his worth through his actions. The colonel wonders why O trusts Cholu, so implicitly sensing he has a special reason for taking his side. Internally, O reflects that there is no hidden motive. In the past, he and Cholu cleared all the monsters in the east to protect the citizens of Nova, earning them both the gratitude of General Park. Before being assigned to hunt deserters, O was a man who sought strength to create a free world. He constantly tested himself because he loved Nova. Back in the present, the colonel ends the discussion by refusing to send him back, insisting they focus on national security. Knowing he belongs to Nova rather than the military, O immediately places his resignation letter on the table. Morin is stunned that he would leave at such a critical time. O states that, while national power must be solidified, he believes that power depends on how well a country utilizes Nova. He claims to know the right man who holds the key to it all. Meanwhile, Cholu arrives on Earth. In a car driven by the former thug lady, our protagonist points out that she should not call him Big Brother since she is older than him. Ginta asks how their allies knew exactly when they would emerge from the portal. One member explains that they waited at the portal just in case, though number one had already predicted their arrival. Our hero is satisfied with this, then asks about the new business number one opened. The lady chuckles, noting that the company name is a surprise for their leader. They eventually arrive at the new establishment titled Cholu Solution. Inside, number one greets Cholu respectfully. Our protagonist appears confident but questions the name, remarking that it sounds like they're in the thigh business, not to mention the office is located a little too close to his home. Number one immediately apologizes. However, our hero clarifies that only his grandfather would dislike it because the old man hates thugs. Number one finally realizes why his men were constantly being kicked out of the area. Cholu asks if his grandfather is present, and number one nods before receiving praise for hiring 20 employees, as number one bows in gratitude. O steps inside with a curious expression, asking if this is a gathering of gangsters. Surprised, our hero recognizes him as the soldier he fought previously and notices his arm has completely healed. Seeing the crowd of men, O wonders if this is a gang, but Cholu explains they are mercenaries. O remarks on how much the squad has grown. Our protagonist then offers him a position in the group. O is surprised by the sudden proposal, but Cholu says they both know why he is here. Impressed by the kid's sharp thinking, O shakes his hand, immediately noticing the incredible new strength behind Chelu's grip. As it turns out, our hero was looking for someone to whip his mercenaries into shape. O is skeptical about getting a job offer from a near stranger, but Chelu insists he can spot a good soldier when he sees one. With that, O reveals he's actually out of the military now and officially accepts the gig as the mercenaries' new drill instructor. After a proper reintroduction, O heads out, promising they'll link up again in Neo Seoul. Later that day, Chelu's grandfather treats them to a gigantic pot of soup. He also advises our protagonist that with Earth in such chaos, he should really find a safer place to hunker down. Ginte tries to reassure him, explaining it's the new year and a soldier buddy swore there's no threat of war, but Gramps isn't convinced, insisting there are better places to be celebrating. Ginte's eyes bulge at the sheer size of the meal, but the proud grandfather just laughs, boasting about his grandson's legendary appetite. When the boys ask for some alcohol, Gramps cheekily asks if this means they're finally official adults. Our hero beams, announcing that he wants his very first drink to be with his grandfather. He's reminded of the barbarian ceremony, where upon turning 18, young men are declared true warriors through a special ritual. Chelu wonders if this means he can be reborn as a true barbarian, but quickly decides he might not be ready just yet. As he gets ready to take a sip, the elder instructs him to use both hands and bow slightly as a sign of respect. Chelu respectfully acknowledges the tradition. The grandfather then turns to Ginta, asking if he's heading home for the holiday. In a moment of vulnerability, Ginta explains that as an illegitimate son with no family record, he has nowhere to go. Without missing a beat, Chelu asks Ginta if he wants him to take care of his family for him. This, of course, causes Ginta to totally freak out and call him a psycho. Seeing this, Gramps just laughs, offers Ginta a drink, and welcomes him to the family, saying any friend of Chelu's is a grandson to him. They all share a toast to their newfound adulthood. The next morning, however, Ginta is in a full-blown food coma and suggests they take a day off. But our hero, with his superhuman digestion, is already good to go and insists they head back to Nova. When they get to the portal, they find it mobbed by soldiers and civilians alike. Ginty explains that now that Nova is public knowledge, everyone's lining up to get tested. This gets our protagonist worried about his grandfather, who would have to take the test despite his age and fragile health. Ginta agrees it would be tough, but our hero is determined to find a way to bring his grandpa with them. Later at the Neo-Seoul headquarters, General Park proposes a formal alliance. Now that the frontier is open, the competition between nations is heating up. The general proposes a formal contract between the army mercenaries and other guilds to spearhead the exploration efforts. Without a second thought, Chelu signs on the dotted line. The general remarks that he's a little too trusting, but Chelu just smiles and guarantees there's no room for deceit between friends. Still, the general warns that South Korea is playing catch-up with the other nations that got a head start. When our protagonist asks who's leading the pack, Park points to Japan. Chelu immediately suggests they need to expand the map and fast-track their technology, proposing that hunting down field bosses is the quickest way to do it. The general is taken aback, asking if he means the Cyclops. Chelu is thrilled to learn the military has already pinpointed its location. The general reveals that a military intelligence unit led by Captain Choi and Sergeant Yang Su has already locked onto the target's coordinates. Our hero is totally pumped for the mission, and the general confirms that the stage is set. After getting the green light to attack with full force, Chelu is determined to take down the Cyclops in one clean strike. Jun Hwano is introduced as the new sub-leader of the operations unit, receiving a warm welcome from the soldiers. While some of the mercenaries seem relieved to have him, others are sizing up the new guy who will be giving them orders. Jun Hwano greets the troops and gives them a formal introduction. Our hero then orders Ginta to stay on housekeeping duty, explaining that they're now operating with a dual sub-leader system. When Jun Hwano asks Chelu about the specific operational plans, our protagonist puts on a classic display of laziness, showing a complete and utter lack of initiative. The newly appointed sub-leader is completely baffled, questioning why he was chosen, and seeming a bit insecure about his own abilities. But our hero simply tells Junhwan to make his own calls, showing his complete trust in the new guy's instincts. Accepting the responsibility, Junhwan decides to completely reorganize the unit's structure. Despite his laid-back demeanor, it's clear he's got a plan. With a sly grin, he kicks things off, promising the mercenaries a fun-filled journey of everything from field conquests to hellish training. Seeing that look on his face, the soldiers get a sinking feeling that their lives are about to get a whole lot harder. The scene cuts to a neon-lit street in Osaka, Japan. A young guy in glasses and headphones looks totally drained, muttering about how intense things have gotten. Suddenly, a woman slams into him, desperately pleading for help, which only seems to annoy him even more. He quickly spots a crowd of people sprinting the other way, screaming in terror. Another man frantically rushes by, shouting for him to get away. Suddenly, terrifying goblins with glowing red eyes swarm the streets, sparking mass panic. The young man watches the horrifying scene, completely stunned. A blue system screen pops up in front of him with a message. Doomsday exam. The mission: clear the area, collect goblin coins, and escape to Nova. 5 days later at Neo-Seoul headquarters. The general and his assistant are discussing the portal openings and the goblin outbreak in Japan. The Japanese government has declared a state of emergency in Osaka, but they're keeping the details under wraps. A frustrated General Park points out that Japan is viewing this disaster as an opportunity. He notes that ever since the apocalypse began, countries have been fiercely competing to colonize Nova, and Japan probably sees this outbreak as a twisted way to train new Novas. The assistant predicts the population in Nova will increase, and Park realizes Japan is trying to get a leg up in the colonization race. However, he's still concerned about how they managed to open the portal. He then asks for a status update on our hero. The assistant reports that Captain Choi and Sergeant Kai headed out yesterday and should reach their destination tonight. Meanwhile, the mercenaries are marching in perfect disciplined formation. Junhwan barks at them to stay in line, prompting an embarrassed apology from one of the soldiers. Another soldier mutters that Captain Junhwan is way smarter than their leader. While Chelu just resorts to physical punishment, the captain uses mental torture, which feels way worse. Choi remarks that the mercenary corps has stricter discipline than the army, addressing Junhwan as Officer O. But Junhwan quickly clarifies that he's retired and insists on being called by his name. Choi asks why he returned to the field after vowing he'd never come back to Neo-Seoul. Junhwan quips that while beating up deserters in street clothes sounded fun, the novelty wore off. When Choi asks if he joined the mercenaries because he was sick of General Park's drama, Junhwan admits that was a big part of it. Choi notes that our protagonist seems to have been a major motivation for him. The soldiers hiss at each other to stay in line to avoid getting an earful from their sub-leader. Junhwan reveals that the unit was a total disaster when he arrived, so he had to whip them into shape. He admits that life in the mercenary corps is actually quite fun, wondering if he was ever this motivated back in his army days. Choi is pleased to see his growth and glances over toward Chelu, noting that he really is a good guy. Just then, our protagonist orders the group to halt, announcing they'll be making camp for the night. Later inside a tent, our hero gathers the unit leaders to go over the plan, analyzing the map. Chelu points out that they'll reach the target before dawn. Captain Choi briefs them that hunting an area boss is a lot like a dungeon raid in a game. The target forest is split into central and outer areas, protected by ogres and NLs. Chelu suggests a direct charge, but the captain shoots that down, revealing there are over 100 NLEs. On top of that, a countdown starts the second they step into the forest. Choi explains that they have to win within a specific time limit, or they'll be forcibly teleported out just like in a game. Our hero decides on a lightning-fast strategy and is still totally pumped to hunt the Cyclops. At dawn, the squad reaches the location as the system announces the event and starts a 30-minute countdown. Ginte leads the main unit in an ambush on the left side of the forest, using the rough terrain to their advantage. The fighting is fierce, and the soldiers quickly find themselves up against the relentless NLs. Just as planned, the main group pulls back and Sergeant Yongsu's team takes over to pepper the NLEs with arrows. With the NLs distracted, the third group pushes toward the central forest where the ogres are waiting. Two giant ogres appear. Choi and Junhwan brace for the confrontation, with Choi admitting it's his first time facing such massive beasts. Junhwan proposes a bet on who can take down the most ogres, and the two of them charge fiercely at the monsters. Meanwhile, our hero is blazing through the gorge on his Mount Sonata, with only an estimated 20 minutes to reach the target. He pushes his mount to go even faster. Suddenly, our protagonist learns the iron-striped horse skill, which activates automatically. As he cuts down ogres in his path, the system announces he has also acquired the mounted combat skill. Chelu hurries, reaching the center of the forest with only 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. He notices the boss is nowhere in sight, but upon touching a tree, he realizes it's some kind of holy ground. The tree glows brilliantly, emitting immense energy. A window explains that this is the World Tree, which is here to test our protagonist's qualifications. A vortex of energy swirls into existence, and a colossal, imposing monster emerges from the whirlpool. The area boss has finally revealed itself. It's the Cyclops. Chelu is impressed as he observes his massive enemy. The Cyclops smashes its weapon down, shattering the ground. Chelu sees the attack's got a wide, dangerous range, so he meets it head-on with his axe. Their weapons clash, but our hero quickly realizes that despite his best efforts, the giant isn't even fazed. Since his attacks aren't doing any real damage, he starts to wonder if the monster's massive size is the problem. He figures there's no point in trying to fight from a distance against a weapon with that much reach. Determined, our protagonist decides to close the gap and go for its legs. He unleashes a powerful attack and scores a direct hit, but the leg is completely fine. Looking closer, he sees he only managed to leave a tiny scratch on the leg's rocky surface. Our guy realizes it's not that the creature has tough ogre skin or anything. It's just too enormous to take any real damage. Realizing this is going to be a tough fight, he switches tactics and starts unleashing a relentless flurry of axe swings, landing one blow after another. The giant is stuck in place, and our hero notes that it's impossible to hit someone up close with such a long weapon. Before long, the giant roars and raises its massive foot to crush him. Luckily, Chelu dodges the stomp and lands another heavy blow, making the giant roar in pain. He can't help but smile proud of his axe skills. But even as it's roaring, the Cyclops swivels its massive eye, takes aim at our protagonist, and fires a powerful beam. He barely manages to dodge the attack, jumping back just in time. Coughing from the effort, our hero now sees the giant for what it is, a beast that was holding back its true power. A digital screen pops up with a countdown timer showing that only 5 minutes are left. This is alarming for Chelu. Just then, Cho and Junhwan arrive on the battlefield, drawn by the sound of explosions. Suddenly, the giant attacks again, and the soldiers are stunned by the sheer power of the creature. Our hero orders them to aim for its leg, since he's already managed to damage it, and says he'll act as a decoy. The two men immediately start attacking the giant's legs. Meanwhile, Chelu figures that while the beam is deadly, it must have a weakness. Our protagonist spots a pattern the eye beam fires at regular intervals. He dodges another blast and jokes that the giant should be protecting the forest, not wrecking it. Meanwhile, the on-screen timer shows only 1 minute and 47 seconds remaining. Seeing how little time is left, our hero knows that swinging aimlessly isn't going to cut it. Cho informs him that they've successfully taken care of the legs. After praising their work, our hero calls for his horse. The timer shows only 29 seconds left. Chelu knows there's only one way to end this. We see a flashback to his younger self, lost and alone. He remembers his parents' death and how after they passed, a part of him just stopped growing. A darkness took root inside him back then, but thinking about it now, he decides it's time to break out of that shell. He has friends and comrades to protect now. For their sake, he needs to finally move past his grief. With a newly serious expression, our protagonist focuses on his goal and readies his axe. He thinks to himself that through his inner realm discipline, he's finally grasped a truth that he could only see through the eyes of his younger self. His horse Sonata arrives at a full gallop, and Chelu mounts up. The timer shows only 10 seconds left. In this final window of opportunity, our hero leaps from his horse, focusing all of his power into a single point. In the last 2 seconds, he unleashes his ogre's power and lands a devastating blow. At last, the Cyclops is defeated. A system message announces their victory, and the Tree of Protection evolves into the Tree of Guardianship. Gente appears and celebrates their success. Area C-442 now officially belongs to Earth, and with the protective mist gone, it's open for new settlers. Chelu praises everyone for their hard work. They've now learned that defeating area bosses is the key to breaking the boundaries. Better yet, he's obtained the giant's weapon, the Cyclops halberd. A new mission appears. Nova's world is vast, and there are new areas that need to be explored. Our protagonist is surprised by the new task. Another objective also appears on screen: tame a mount. The reward will allow new recruits to learn how to ride horses. Chelu feels a little bummed out that this special skill will now be available to everyone. Gente points out that this method is different from the one the horseback raiders use, since theirs doesn't come from the official Nova system. Our guy just laughs it off and decides he's going to turn his entire mercenary squad into a cavalry unit. However, Junin pushes back, arguing that military diversity is crucial and their army needs to be prepared for any kind of situation. Our hero is clearly getting annoyed with the constant complaints, feeling like the reward isn't nearly enough for all the trouble they went through. Suddenly, the world tree begins to glow brightly and a portal opens up. The group watches in confusion, wondering if another Cyclops is about to pop out. But instead, a huge monstrous foot steps through, followed by a smiling goblin carrying a big bag of coins. He cheerfully announces that they should come forward and pick out whatever they want, warning them that he doesn't make appearances very often. Cho and Gente are buzzing with excitement. They realize it's the legendary goblin merchant. In a completely different scene, someone calls for the president as he sits at his desk. He finds out the Japanese government is asking for an astronomical sum just to share information about the Nova portal that appeared there. The president lets out a heavy sigh, feeling like he has no choice but to pay the steep price, and tells his advisor to start negotiations. However, the advisor reveals that they can't even proceed. He informs him that South Korea has been completely shut out of the talks. The president slams the table and shouts, asking how this is possible and wondering if they're being totally ignored. According to the Japanese embassy, the country will only be open to discussions in the summer. The president complains that summer is half a year away, which is like 3 long years in Nova's time. Irritated, he points out that the Japanese are clearly loving the fact that they have the upper hand in this power struggle. At that exact moment, the advisor's smartphone gets a message. He apologizes and goes to turn off the device, but he freezes when he reads the notification. Surprised, he shouts to the president that something has happened. When the president asks him what's going on, the advisor explains that a portal just opened up in Paju along with a swarm of goblins. It's official, Korea has a new Nova portal. Shocked by the news, the president quickly becomes overjoyed. The advisor is smiling too excitedly, showing him his phone. While the president remarks that this is fantastic, he quickly gets serious again, reminding the advisor that this is no time to celebrate, as the Paju portal is dangerously close to the capital. Looking embarrassed, the advisor apologizes and offers to call an emergency meeting. The president asks him to hold on, mentioning there's one more thing to do. He needs to immediately call Major General Park Jong-pil of Neo-Seoul. The scene switches to a location in Nova, where a system message announces that Area C-442 is now recognized as Earth's territory. New settlers will be accepted and the protective fog has been lifted. Kim and his squad watch the changes happen. Kim wonders if the barrier just collapsed, while others yell that the blue mist is fading away. One soldier points out that someone must have defeated the area boss. Kim gives a knowing smile, remarking that he knows exactly who's responsible. He believes the hunt was a success thanks to Chelu Kang. Inside Neo-Seoul headquarters, celebrations are kicking off because defeating the Cyclops was the key to making progress. Looking at a blue notification window, General Park discovers that Area C-442 now belongs to Earth. This means the portal will be opening soon. He immediately stands up, stating there's no time to waste since the area will soon look just like Osaka, meaning they need to prepare quickly. Suddenly, a captain bursts in. The general enthusiastically asks if he's checked the screen, but the captain has more urgent news. The president is calling about the opening of the Paju portal. The general needs to prepare to return to Earth immediately. Surprised, the old man gets ready to leave, joking that he should use the fastest portal to get to Seoul. When the captain mentions no such portal exists, the general just laughs, revealing it was only a joke. Back in the newly claimed area, a merchant goblin states that this is a rare opportunity. A system interface appears in front of the creature, displaying a sale list of colorful scrolls in red-green, blue, purple, and yellow. Chelu interacts with the options, finding the red and green talismans particularly interesting. The screen describes the red talisman as a scroll of breakthrough, which increases status limits for 200 goblin coins. Our protagonist realizes he can push his attributes even higher. Thinking of the possibilities, he decides to buy 10 of each color. Jinta panics, shouting that this is crazy since Chelu is about to spend his entire fortune. With a confident smile, our hero says he's going to try to reach 100 in his stats, noting that getting stronger is fun. He quickly presses the button to complete the purchase. The next step is to distribute the status stones scattered on the ground. Choi suggests that our protagonist take them all to max out his limits, explaining that after hitting the 50-point mark, he can become a ranker. When Chelu wonders what the point of being a ranker is, Choi explains it allows you to measure your strength rating. He then secretly reveals that he's ranked 93rd in perception. Finding this ranking pretty weak, our hero reacts with surprise. Choi asks him to keep it a secret. Confused, Chelu asks how you can know your ranking without any direct competition. Choi explains that upon becoming a ranker, you can compete on the ranking grounds, where the system automatically ranks you. Our protagonist is shocked he didn't know this sooner. Regretful but eager, he grabs a blue stone. The system reports he has used 2 status stones, bringing his strength to 43 dexterity, to 35 stamina, to 50, perception to 38, and magic to 9. With 50 points in stamina, the system announces his transportation to the ranking grounds. Chelu is ready and excited to see the new place. Arriving in a vast white expanse, he looks around and wonders if this is really the ranking grounds. A notification for a stamina test pops up, telling him to run at full speed. Our boy thinks the instructions are a little weird, but he notices the ground actually forming in front of him as he moves. As he gets going, the system clocks his speed at 3.4 kilometers per hour. While tackling the task, our protagonist thinks to himself that this is way easier than he expected. He really pushes himself and breaks into a sprint, thinking that keeping things simple is his greatest strength. He's dead set on running until his lungs give out. The scene then cuts to the Japanese Prime Minister's office. An aide enthusiastically reports that Sato's special forces have geared up to take down the next area boss. The Prime Minister is ecstatic and orders the intelligence gathering rate to be increased 5-fold, aiming to solidify Japan's leadership in Nova. All of a sudden, someone bursts in reporting a major problem. The Prime Minister demands to know what the interruption is for, but the man just points to a news broadcast on screen. A portal has opened in Korea, leaving the Japanese leader completely speechless. The broadcast is a Korean news brief explaining that they're sharing this information out of a moral obligation to ensure global cooperation. This move completely torpedoes Japan's plans. The Prime Minister trembles with rage, yelling that Korea even revealed the specific details of the portal's opening. He demands to know how they possibly managed to defeat the area boss. While his advisor wonders aloud if they secretly trained some kind of special weapon, the Prime Minister furiously orders him to find out who this person is immediately. Meanwhile, General Park makes a public declaration: the Republic of Korea has officially entered the era of dimensional exploration. Later, the Korean president is seen clapping, congratulating Director Park on his success. He praises him for such a remarkable achievement. The president then brings up plans to establish a Nova Army, asking Park to personally oversee its formation at Army headquarters. Park humbly declines the offer, stating that he's perfectly happy in his current position. The president just smiles. Thinking he's just being modest, he then suggests that since Neo Seoul already has a well-established system, someone else can easily take over his duties, as Park is needed for a much larger role. After a moment's pause, Park asks to be sent to Cheongju to turn it into the central hub for Korea's portal network. The president readily agrees, convinced that no one else could do a better job, and promotes him to Lieutenant General Park, putting him in complete charge of the Cheongju portal. Back in Nova, a system window pops up showing that the measurement is complete, and he's earned 2,512 points. The system announces that Chelu has officially taken first place. Our hero lets out a confident laugh as he receives 25 points to spend in the ranker store. Gente runs up to him asking how it went. Chelu casually replies that he took first place, which leaves the others stunned. Choi, finding it hard to believe, asks if he earned a lot of points. Our protagonist proudly confirms that he got 25 points. Choi practically despairs as he tries to wrap his head around the scale of this achievement, while Junhwan asks if he's bought anything with the points yet. Chelu shakes his head, revealing that for now, he only expanded his inventory. He then asks if anyone has managed to become a ranker across all stats yet. Junhwan replies that he's not sure since most people just prioritize specific stats to get items from the ranker store. Hearing this gets our hero all fired up, and he decides to aim for that exact goal, hoping there's a first-time achievement reward. Gente asks if the group is planning to hunt some more before heading back. Chelu replies that they've still got plenty of supplies, so it would be a waste to leave just yet. The main goal now is to tame a mount and get that special inventory reward that comes with it. He tells Junhwan to take the mercenary group and look for some horses while he and Sonata stick together. Noticing that the border has collapsed, our protagonist decides to see what's on the other side. A few days later, back near a portal, a crowd has gathered to say goodbye to General Park. Park seems sad about his departure. Feeling the weight of leaving his post, he asks Captain Ann if the transfer paperwork was completed correctly. She confirms that Lieutenant Colonel Gunsu Kim will be handling the transition. The general complains that the colonel is a homebody who's barely stepped outside, so he probably knows nothing about the local area. Turning to the Lieutenant Colonel, Park asks him to please take good care of the new commander when he arrives. The colonel just mutters that he'll figure things out on his own, but as he watches the general walk away, he sneers that it's not like Park will be around to see how things turn out anyway. Across the courtyard, someone comes running toward the compound. Suddenly, Lee appears out of nowhere and slams right into the colonel, knocking him off his feet in an awkward tumble. She spins around with a mischievous grin, claiming she didn't see him there, but the colonel knows she absolutely did that on purpose. Seeing her, Park remarks that he wasn't expecting a visit before he left. She explains that she rushed back as soon as she heard the news and asks about his sudden transfer to Cheongju. The general just replies that things are moving very quickly. Lee asks him to take her team with him, mentioning their constant staff shortage, but he explains that orders from the top prevent the transfer of any key personnel. He points out that Neo Soul needs them, and gently reminds her that he's no longer the major general in charge here. Sighing, Lee accepts the reality of the situation. She then asks what kind of person the new commander of Neo Soul is supposed to be. Just as a figure emerges from the portal, the newcomer comments that Neo Soul looks like a pretty shabby place. Everyone stares in shock, as the man appears wearing nothing but his underwear. This guy's the new commander, General Wang Jin Lim. The scene shifts to Chelu and Gente riding into a Neo Soul area on horseback. A system notification informs them they've left Area C442. As they arrive in a snow-covered region, the system announces their entry into Area W3105. Our hero wonders aloud if this is the third exploration area, noting the drastic shift in seasons. Chelu complains about the biting cold while Gente shivers beside him. Their journey so far has been grueling. First, they crossed arid lands that made their skin peel, then they trudged through a humid region with non-stop rain. Each map has its own unique characteristics, and even the monsters are different from one place to the next. Gente reflects that the world is just too vast for them to keep exploring forever. Our hero points out that if they explore far enough, they'll eventually find a new portal connecting to a different continent. Gente calls it a bold theory, then asks what our boy is doing when he sees him rubbing his hands together. With a dead serious look, Chelu reveals he's just trying to warm up. A second later, he starts shaking violently as the intense cold of the snowy region finally hits him full force. Gente laughs, pointing out that even Chelu's ogre skin seems to be useless against this kind of chill. Struggling with the freezing temperature, Chelu suggests they head back, figuring the mercenary group must have already finished their mission by now. Gente agrees, adding that they definitely need to be better prepared next time. As they head back, our hero makes a mental note to ask General Park to prepare winter supplies for the next expedition. The scene then shifts back to Neo Soul, where workers are hauling heavy materials. They complain about how expensive the items are and remind each other to handle everything with care. Lee reflects that barely 10 days have passed, yet the place has changed so much already. Workers are rushing to move materials out back. Because of all things, a golf course is being built. Won Jin is standing nearby, clearly furious and yelling at someone. While carrying heavy lumber, the workers complain about getting paid peanuts to build a golf course, mentioning how much they miss their old boss. At a nearby stall, a man complains about the skyrocketing prices. The vendor defends himself, saying he's just trying to make a living, but the new construction has made everything incredibly scarce. The new general is turning Neo Soul into his own personal luxury bunker, making Lee wonder if any of this will actually protect the citizens. And then suddenly, someone calls out to her with news that our hero's squad has finally returned. She immediately realizes things are about to get complicated. Through the dust, the riders emerge. Chelu is in total shock, shouting desperately and asking what happened to their house. He demands to know who had the nerve to demolish his home and calls for Park Junpil to show himself immediately. Lee informs him that Lieutenant General Park Junpil has been reassigned. The sergeant and Captain Choi are stunned, asking who's in charge now. Lee reveals that a General Won Jin Lim is the new commander and adds that he's waiting for them. Gritting his teeth, Chelu gets furious they messed with his property. Our hero rallies his mercenaries and orders everyone to march straight to the central government office, mounted on their horses. The mercenaries charge forward, shouting that they're going to get their home back. Meanwhile, at headquarters, the general asks Kim if the preparations to face Chelu are complete. The colonel confirms they've gathered more than 600 men, including armed soldiers, reservists, and civil defense members. The general remarks that our boy is the key to Neo Soul's success, so he figures they should just force him to join their side. His subordinate confirms that everything is ready. The old man boasts that it doesn't matter how strong the target is. After all, our protagonist is just a 20-year-old kid who needs to be taught a lesson. Suddenly, the whole building starts to shake. The general wonders if it's an earthquake, but Kim quickly realizes the tremors are being caused by the Ironhead mercenaries. Sure enough, our hero and his crew arrive at the headquarters moments later. Standing out front, the general smirks, commenting that their return was a bit noisier than he expected. Chelu angrily demands to know if he was the one who destroyed their house. Outraged by his tone, the colonel yells at the boy to show the general some respect. Completely ignoring him, our hero grabs the colonel by the mouth and demands an answer. He repeats the question menacingly, wanting to know if it was the general who demolished their home. The colonel struggles to breathe. The general starts laughing, wondering aloud if Chelu is really this worked up over one little house. Annoyed, our hero shoves the colonel aside and tells the general to stop laughing and start explaining. The general explains that the territory now belongs to him and anyone who wants to use the land has to pay up. He claims he had the site demolished simply as part of his official duties. Chelu asks why he should have to pay when the land was a gift from Park Junpil. The general just warns him that Neo Soul belongs to him now, so our hero had better follow his rules. Switching gears, the general extends his hand and invites Chelu to join him, promising as much free land as he could ever want. Our boy mulls over the words, wondering about the tempting offer. But he still furiously demands the immediate return of his land. With a sinister laugh, the general says, if that's how he wants to play, then so be it. Unexpectedly, he declares the Ironhead mercenaries to be rebels and orders his men to eliminate them. Chelu's mercenaries brace for the looming confrontation, scanning the area and asking if the enemies are hiding. Meanwhile, Chelu walks alone toward the general. In response, the general orders all his troops to prepare for battle. One of the enemy soldiers scoffs at the advance, wondering aloud what a bunch of mere mercenaries could possibly do to them. Before he can even finish his sentence, our hero stops him with a piercing gaze and a sharp command to halt. The threat is crystal clear. Drawing a weapon means it's the end of the line for anyone who dares. Suddenly panicked, the general rounds on his guards, asking how they could be foolish enough to fall for a simple bluff. At that moment, someone calls out to our protagonist. It's Yong-soo and Choi, and they grab him, suggesting they resolve the situation through dialogue to avoid a disastrous war. Surprised by their intervention, the general questions the men's identities and asks if they aren't soldiers. Realizing his authority is slipping, he shouts for someone to get Lee. Lee appears immediately. The general asks if she is indeed the swordmaster of Neo Soul, which she reluctantly confirms. He then offers her a promotion if she quickly takes down Chelu, but she simply sighs, replying that she can't beat him. Frustrated, the general grabs her and shouts, asking if he looks like a joke to her. Maintaining her composure, Lee flashes a mocking smile and comments that his personality is even worse than she'd imagined. The general declares he will show her the true meaning of worst and swings his hand at her. However, his wrist is stopped midair as our hero grabs his arm. Chelu coldly remarks that the man doesn't seem to know much about Nova. The general stares in shock at the incredible speed. Our protagonist continues his speech, explaining that his group isn't made up of bandits who threaten civilians or some reckless street gang. However, they show zero mercy to anyone who decides to fight them. As our boy tightens his grip, the general screams in pain. Chelu then asks the surrounding men if they still have the guts to fight him. The soldiers look clearly intimidated. A weapon clatters to the ground as one soldier screams in despair and gives up. Quickly, others follow suit, questioning how they could ever possibly defeat Chelu. They argue there is no point in going to war against the very hero who saved Neo-Seoul. Another soldier remarks that this place no longer feels like the military and announces he would rather join the mercenaries. Many others shout in agreement. Lee is stunned by the display. It's unbelievable to her that in these chaotic times, neither Neo-Seoul nor the military could protect the citizens. Yet the one who managed to unite everyone is Chelu. His overwhelming strength is the only thing maintaining order. The general yells at Lee, complaining that she's just standing by while her superior is in danger. He orders her to hurry up and get this guy off him. Lee realizes she has no other choice and makes a pivotal decision. She positions herself in front of Chelu and declares that from now on her sword belongs to him. Everyone is stunned as she states that the Neo-Seoul she knew no longer exists. She can no longer see a future in that place, but she does see one with our hero. She believes that because of him, Nova has a bright future. Smiling with confidence, our protagonist welcomes her to the squad. The general questions her actions, but Lee simply tells him to process her discharge papers. Shocked and in disbelief, he shouts that he doesn't accept her resignation and asks who authorized it. Lee claims she authorized it herself. She ignores his opinion and, stepping aside, tells him that any further complaints should be directed to her new boss. Terrified, the general listens as our hero says they need to discuss compensation for destroying the mercenary base. Swallowing hard, the general asks if Chelu is really going to attack him, even if it means becoming a target of the entire Korean military. Grabbing the man's collar, our hero admits he's tempted to end him right then and there. Instead, he proposes a deal. He demands payment for the value of the land where the base stood, plus the reward he was originally supposed to receive from Junpil. Later, the mercenary squad drinks and celebrates. Our hero learns that Junpil was transferred to Changju. Lee asks what the plan is for the unit moving forward. Chelu explains they plan to explore beyond the barrier, but without military support, they'll have to figure out how to survive on their own. Ginte suggests going to Cheongju, mentioning that discovery rewards are still up for grabs there. Model. Liking the idea, our hero flashes a confident smile, already thinking about the area boss that must be there and the fact that Junpil is already on site. Jint asks for other opinions, and while everyone else is on board, Junhwan notices a strange look on Chelu's face. He asks what's wrong, and our protagonist admits he's worried about leaving Choi and Yong-soo behind. Lee explains that it's difficult for Captain Choi to leave because his mother is sick, and Yong-soo would likely stay behind out of loyalty. Chelu is confused until Lee explains that Choi relies on the military for the hospital care and salary needed for his mother, things that aren't available out in the wilds of Nova. After thinking for a moment, our hero comes up with a brilliant idea. Just as Choi leaves his room to tell Yong-soo that the higher-ups denied his transfer request to Cheongju, our boy appears calling out to them. Choi asks what he's doing there, and with a confident smile, Chelu announces that he's come to take both of them with him. Later, while sitting on a bench, Choi tells Yong-soo to go with the mercenaries but insists he cannot join. Chelu asks Choi if he would come along if his family's safety was guaranteed. When Choi asks him to clarify, our hero explains that he has a company back on Earth called Chelu Services that supports the families of people working in Nova. Choi suspiciously asks if it's some kind of gang, but an embarrassed Chelu clarifies that it's a legitimate business dedicated to protecting his squad's families. Impressed by our protagonist's problem-solving skills, the two men agree to join him. With that settled, our hero prepares to move his whole squad to Cheongju Nova, even providing transportation and meals for everyone who suffered under the new commander. A few days later at the Poo Portal, a large crowd is gathered. Our protagonist walks through the throng, noting how much has changed since the official Nova announcement. A military jeep pulls up, and a soldier gets out to greet him. She introduces herself as Second Lieutenant Seong Acho Choi from the intelligence unit, though our hero doesn't recognize her at first. She reminds him that she was there before with Officer O. Chelu asks why she's talking to him, and she explains that she has a message from Lieutenant General Park Junpil. She reveals that she's been assigned to the Cheongju Nova intelligence unit and is there to escort him to his destination. Chelu smirks, realizing they're finally on the same page. He immediately turns and suggests they head out right away. She complains, asking if he's not going to ride with her in the jeep, but Chelu explains that the group is too large and they have to travel separately. Just then he sees the rest of his people arriving in buses. Number 1 greets his boss, but our hero lightheartedly reminds him they're not a gang. Number 1 then explains that as ordered by the sub-leader, he prepared the buses for the civilians. Chelu praises him and Gintai for their hard work. Gintai humbly claims he just spread the word, but he does point out that our protagonist didn't bring as many people as expected. Chelu admits the sudden move was a heavy burden for some. Some of the mercenaries decided to follow later, and he respects that choice. After all, they're starting their lives from scratch in rural Cheongju. Smiling our boy reveals that he specifically selected certain people to help with the construction of Cheongju. Among them are a soup lady who can make any dish taste heavenly, and a blacksmith who can repair or forge any type of weapon. Ready to move, Chelu waves at Sun as the buses begin to head down. He suggests they stop at a rest area on the way. A short while later, they step inside the portal. Looking around, Chelu comments on how much the place has developed in such a short time. Gintai notices the people's clothes and laughs, remarking that he can already feel Lieutenant General Park's influence. Chelu jokes that they left Neo-Seoul only to find another place exactly like it. Suddenly, the general excitedly shouts for our hero. Chelu greets him with a laugh, mentioning he was worried when he heard the general had been kicked out. The general just laughs it off, saying it's normal for a soldier to change posts. Chelu comments that he almost slapped the guy who replaced him, and the general agrees it's a good thing he didn't. Our protagonist then mentions he brought some gifts. The old man is curious until, he recognizes that the newcomers are merchants from Neo-Seoul. Chelu explains his plan to establish a village here. He says he was worried about the general being all alone, so he brought everyone who was willing to come with him. Overjoyed, the general admits these are exactly the people needed to accelerate Nova's development. The merchants warmly greet the old man, telling him how much they've missed him. The general thanks Chelu for his help, and our hero proudly says that's what friends are for, telling the general to consider it thanks for lending him his men. Soon after, Lee Choi and Yanu arrive in Cheongju. Lee happily greets the general, noting it's been a while. Chelu explains that these newcomers are now part of his mercenary group, and will be assisting with the development. After a brief pause, the general points out that they've all left the army now and then bursts out laughing. He says they did the right thing because he was worried about them, model, adding that he's thrilled everyone could make it to Hanyang. Full of excitement, he invites the whole group to share a meal. As they walk through the village, Chelu asks what this place is all about, wondering if it's going to be another Neo-Seoul. The general, anticipating the question, reveals its name, Hanyang. He explains the goal is to create an agricultural hub to guarantee a food supply for future generations, preparing them for monster invasions. They've even built an earthen fortress for defense. What's more, once the roads are developed, the place is set to become a major commercial hub enabling trade with every continent. Our boy is amazed by the whole concept of an agricultural village. The general proudly explains their secret weapon discovering rice seedlings. He adds that every region has unique items you can find. Thrilled by the news of rice, Chelu eagerly asks if this means they can finally have rice soup instead of barley. The general just laughs, amused by how pure and innocent he is. However, the general then remembers he called Chelu over for something even more important, causing our protagonist to stop in his tracks. General Park asks if they're up for tackling a secret dungeon. Chelu immediately gets pumped, and the rest of the group looks intrigued. As they continue walking, the general reveals that they've discovered a magic teleportation circle, which he says will be crucial for transportation in Nova. Our hero wonders what a teleportation circle even is, and Park explains that one of the guards stumbled upon it by pure chance. A system window pops up with the details. The magic circle allows instant travel to other registered circles for a fee of 100,000 coins. The general points out that if they can find similar circles in other places, they'll be able to travel between them directly. Chelu immediately asks if this means the area around the circle is about to become prime real estate. Laughing, the general agrees it's a perfect analogy. He plans to build a major road connecting Hanyang to that spot, but there's a problem: the path is currently blocked by a dungeon. And that's when our boy understands why they were called here. The general admits that the task is too much for his own forces, and that he needs the strength of Chelu's mercenary group. He promises that if they can clear the dungeon, he'll let them claim the entire site for their new base of operations. Tempted by the amazing offer, Chelu and his squad soon arrive at the dungeon entrance. A system window appears identifying the hidden dungeon as the Cursed Castle of the Count. The objective is to eliminate the Count who dabbled in forbidden magic. The rewards include a Seal of the Lord and a first-time completion bonus. Standing at the entrance, Chelu takes in the sight of the magnificent castle, his eyes on the prize. The atmosphere is heavy. Gente remarks on the ominous weather, and even the seasoned mercenaries look terrified. Chelu tells them anyone who's afraid can stay behind his eyes blazing with killing intent. The soldiers immediately snap to attention, shouting in unison that there will be no deserters. Our hero declares that his axe won't be stained with the blood of cowards, then orders everyone to arm up, shut their mouths, and move out. The soldiers charge forward on horseback. Suddenly, a giant glowing arrow slams into the ground, stopping one of the horses in its tracks. More arrows rain down from the sky, boxing in the horses and halting their advance. Chelu quickly sizes up the situation. It's a long-range attack from the high ground, which makes a direct charge impossible. The attackers are skeleton archers. Seeing this, our protagonist leaps from his horse and orders the scattered troops to regroup and hold their position. With fierce determination, Chelu charges forward alone, shouting that he's going to smash through the castle gate himself. Arrows rain down on him, but he doesn't even flinch. He urges his horse Sonata to run, and they accelerate to incredible speed. Sonata acquires a new skill galloping charge which boosts its leg speed. A nearby skeleton archer is visibly stunned by their sudden reckless charge. Still charging ahead, our boy orders Sonata to ram the gate. Upon shattering it, the horse learns a new skill, Horned Impact. Terrified by the gate's destruction, the skeletons shriek in alarm, drawing the attention of every enemy in the vicinity. The skeletons swarm around Chelu as he yells for them to bring it on. He grabs one and headbutts it into dust, boasting that he's got an iron head. Noticing that the volley of arrows has stopped, Chelu's second-in-command orders the cavalry to storm the gate. Nearby, Chelu takes on 3 skeletons by himself, wielding his massive axe to deal with the monsters. He swings the blade with enough force to shatter them to pieces, all while complaining about how weak his enemies are. At this rate, he figures he'll be done before his reinforcements even get here. He wonders aloud if there's anyone stronger around, and just then, heavy footsteps echo nearby. A massive opponent clad in full plate armor appears before our protagonist, who looks surprised for a moment. Wasting no time, Chelu immediately attacks. He mockingly asks if this is the best it's got, noting that the armored knight seems a lot weaker than a cyclops. Our boy lands a devastating blow on the knight, sending the giant figure crashing to the ground. He yells that the fight was boring and complains that the enemy didn't even drop any items. Just then, his squad finally arrives and asks if he's okay. Our hero tells them he's fine, though he can't help but grumble that his men only seem to show up after he's already finished cleaning house. He starts giving orders, telling some to hang back while the others push forward, warning them to watch out for enemies inside. Ginte suddenly screams out a warning, but it's too late. An attack slams into Chelu squarely from behind. Shockingly, the fallen knight, Dullahan, the guardian of the manor, is still alive. Ginte and the mercenaries shout our protagonist's name as a massive gash opens across his back. He can't believe he let his guard down, having just assumed the monster was dead. As the giant moves in for another strike, Lee swoops in and lands a powerful blow. After striking from multiple directions, she knocks the knight down once more and rushes to Chelu's side. Our hero points out that the creature still isn't dead. He notes that the enemy survived their previous all-out attack. In the meantime, skeletal creatures begin to pop up again while the Dullahan reconstitutes its body. Lee wonders how they can possibly move if they're already dead. Chelu explains that black magic is controlling the corpses. Recalling the description he saw earlier, our hero realizes that, to finish them off, they have to defeat the Count who controls them. He immediately orders the others to buy him time so he can get inside, but Lee stops him, insisting on treating his wounds first. Once he's bandaged up, our protagonist leaves the perimeter to his comrades and heads into the manor. Inside, a horrible rotten smell fills the room, forcing him to cover his nose. He soon discovers a large creature and figures it must be the source of the stench. The system window identifies the beast as a corpse golem. Chelu comments that something creative has finally shown up. He was getting bored, but his bleeding is pretty bad, so he decides to finish this quickly and find the Count. He attacks the golem. The creature raises its arm to defend itself, but his weapon pierces right through the monster's torso. The creature lets out a scream as it's torn apart, but the wounds quickly begin to close back up. Annoyed, our warrior grumbles to himself about fighting an immortal, Dullahan, followed by a regenerating monster. He summons his magic-imbued axe from his inventory. With this weapon, he delivers a series of blows, wanting to see if the golem's regeneration can keep up. Soon the golem is torn into pieces. Our hero calls the technique barbarian-style destruction. A notification appears stating that his mastery with heavy weapons has earned him a new skill, dual-wield mastery. While he's excited about the new skill, the flesh of the golem suddenly surrounds him. He wonders how it can still regenerate after being shredded, then spots a red orb pulsing within the mass. Still trapped, our protagonist extends his hand toward the object. He struggles to reach the orb as he's completely engulfed by the flesh, but he finally manages to smash it. With the orb destroyed, the golem is defeated. Chelu obtains another orb, which the system identifies as a golem skill. Realizing he's acquired something very useful, he heads deeper into the manor. Stepping into the inner sanctum, he shouts for the Count to show himself. A figure wearing a long blue cape begins to walk forward. He looks up and recognizes the man as Count Ryan. According to the system, the Count used forbidden dark magic to protect his domain, but was ultimately consumed by it. With determination, our hero faces the corrupted noble. He asks if the man is half original recipe and half extra crispy, but the knight remains silent. Our protagonist comments on the silence but decides it doesn't matter. As he jumps forward to land a strike, he reveals his sole objective, ending this fight once and for all. Chelu attacks the Count with both of his axes, but the opponent launches a fierce counterattack. Surprised by the knight's strength, our protagonist can barely defend himself. Surrounded by flames, the warrior still attacks even as he feels the heat become almost unbearable. His skin is burning, and he can barely withstand the temperature, finding it difficult to even breathe. He realizes that these are no ordinary flames, so our hero activates his analysis ability. The system scans the half-lich Count Ryan and generates the results. The Count is an undead with dark magic and level 2 swordsmanship skills. Chelu notes how high the enemy's weapon skill is right as the Count cuts open his bandage. Just then, our hero uses the orb he obtained from the golem to gain the golem's recovery ability. The system explains that as long as his core is intact, he can heal even completely destroyed limbs. Because of this, our hero declares himself invincible and tells the enemy to cut away as much as he wants. Meanwhile, the mercenaries are fighting against the army of undead skeletons. Yunghwan shouts orders to his companions, telling them to hold their ground and keep attacking. At the same time, Lee is fighting against the giant knight. She appears exhausted and overwhelmed, reflecting that the situation is very difficult. Their only hope now lies with their leader. The battle continues to rage intensely between the Count and Chelu. Our protagonist grits his teeth, thinking about his companions because he knows everyone is counting on him. He is determined to finish off his opponent once and for all. Their weapons clash with full force, and our warrior looks surprised by the power of the blow. He struggles to resist the attack, barely managing to defend himself. Even using all his strength and both his weapons, he can only watch as his opponent's flaming spear cuts right through. One of Chelu's weapons is sent flying, putting him in a bind. Before he can react, the Count lands another strike that sends our boy stumbling back. He's starting to figure out the strategy. The Count is attacking relentlessly to block any escape. In the blink of an eye, the Count vanishes and reappears right in front of him. Soon, our hero gets the hang of the enemy's movements and realizes the secret behind the constant attacks. His agility isn't just about weapon speed. Each step flawlessly sets up the next strike in a perfect sequence.